Good morning, long time no see. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about the American Revolution. Not because I'm American, not because I deeply understand the American Revolution, but just because I'm reading this book, Sometimes in Art by Bernard Bailyn. Here's a dust jacket cover. It's a book of essays on history, and I know I said that I don't read any new books, but if it's nonfiction, it doesn't really count because it's not like, you can't wait to tell. It's more like, this is a nice thing that I need to digest slowly. So anyway, I just finished reading this chapter on this guy called Thomas Hutchinson, and it just made me kind of think about history in general as a whole a little bit deeper, because usually when we're studying history, or when I was studying history in school, it was like this led to this, and then that led to that, and then ended up to being the world that we're in today. And that was cool, but it was a very sequential A, B, C, D, E, F onwards, okay, until wherever we are at this point in time. But this book is really interesting, and it's really opening my eyes about different things. Like in history, when you're in a certain period of time, like if you're in the American Revolution, you don't know for a fact that you are going to kick the British out of your country, and you don't know for a fact that you're no longer going to have to pay taxes to the king. And you don't know who will end up being the victor, you don't know who's going to end up being the loser, you don't know who's truly a loyalist to the British Empire, or if they're a loyalist to a system and they don't want to descend into anarchy. And it just made me think a little bit that's so true. In history, no one has ever any idea of where they're going, and usually in history, except barring a few people, there's no one who's genuinely evil. And sometimes the people who we think are genuinely evil or might just be horrible people, they are actually just a product of their time, and everyone has so many sides to them. It's like, just because you do something horrible does not make you a horrible person. Just because you do something great accidentally does not make you a great person. And it's just a new way of kind of thinking about things, because it's like during the revolution, the founding fathers, they were also slave owners. They advocated for equality for all men, but they thought that black people were was that 2/3 of a man, 1/3 of a man, something like that? No, 3/5 of a man, which sounds horrible. And then when you think about it even more, it's like, the European and American slave trade, how horrible were they? But then the reason why they started the slave trade is because they wanted to remove the middleman, which was the Arab. The Arab who was selling them slaves. They wanted their slaves to be cheaper, so they just went and got them themselves. And a lot of the time, stuff like that's systematically horrible. But I'm pretty sure that most of the people at the time didn't really think about it. They were like, slaves, they come from places. I'm treating them right, I'm giving them food, I'm giving them shelter, I'm providing them with a better life. At least I don't beat them up compared to the people next to me, like my neighbors or whatever. But that in itself is the inherent, I am the owner of your rights and I give them out to you as I please. But at the same time, they had no idea what was going on. Or they had an idea about what was going on, but it's I'm pretty sure no one thought about it. It's hold on a second, this isn't right, because it was a different mindset. Bringing that back to today, when we're thinking of child slavery, or we're thinking about animal cruelty, or things that are not fair trade, or unfair wages, or unfair workers, or migrant laborers, and all of these different giant humongous issues, I'm pretty sure that most people living today are not thinking this is wrong. Or if they are thinking that, they're thinking, well, what am I gonna do about it? And I'm sometimes very much in that position. What am I gonna do about it? How do you change these sweatshops? How do you fix things like this, other than boycotting and trying to spend your money in the best way possible? Anyway, so what the essay was talking about was Thomas Hutchinson and how he was a loyalist to the British Empire, but he very much was only a loyalist to the British Empire because that made the most sense at the time. And then even when you go through the founding fathers and what they were saying, and how they wanted to do this and they wanted to do that, and all these giant big ideas, a lot of the time they just didn't make sense. And a lot of the time it was Thomas Hutchinson who was defending, or showing them their holes in their mentality, or showing them the flaws in their logic. And it's just fascinating to think. It's there's all these things, it's you never thought about. And anyway, so after the American Revolution was done and it happened, yay, independence, USA, he was kind of, I don't know if he was kicked out of the US, or if he was alienated, or he couldn't come back, or something like that. But I do know that he had a letter that was published, and then it was a big scandal, and then he could never come back to his homeland. And he talked about how his house in either Massachusetts or Maine or something like that was like his spot of heaven on earth. And he genuinely loved loved America, and he loved the American people. And he's a fifth generation New Englander or something like that. And he was just not on the winning side, and it was during a time when things were changing and things were happening. And I don't know, that's just like what's been on my mind for the past few days, and like I thought I would share it with you. And this turned into like a weird rant, but you know, that's fine. Like, that's just how we do things around here.